our world has got smaller, so our bikes have got smaller. Right, good morning campers. I'll just put my thing there so you can hear me. Welcome to the Wednesday Bike Club. It's a beautiful sort of frosty Sussex morning. There's nothing like it, I think, being a Sussex boy. There's a little bit of frost on the ground, you know, the roads are dry, and you just think, I've got to get out on the bike. I've got to go on a little trip. Might not be far. And that's what this subject is about today on the Wednesday Bike Club. When does a ride out become an adventure, and what actually makes an adventure? You know, and is it important? Is it measured in distance, or is it measured in time, or is it none of those things at all? And as you know, it's an open discussion. You know, what makes an adventure for you, and what sort of takes it out of the ordinary than a trip down to the shops? Well, sometimes a trip to the shops is an adventure, isn't it? So I thought we'd have a little chat around that, and also my thoughts about where we are with riding now in terms of, you know, has things come a little bit smaller? Are we, as an island, have we become more of an island race, where we were so part of Europe, and now it's like we've shrunk down, isn't it? We've become a bit insular, and that's changed our riding habits and what we buy as bikes as well. So I thought I'd include that. So I'm going to find somewhere to stop and have a chat. So I'll see you in a minute. Come on, let's go. So here we are. I suppose this is a little adventure, isn't it? It has been this morning. I come to the Sussex bench and I thought, it's always very quiet here, it's lovely. And then we're right in the heart of, in this part of Sussex, right in the shooting country. And all of a sudden, the whole entire shooting party, the guns, beaters, everything just descended on me. So I've been sitting and waiting. But I've had a lovely chat with them anyway. Many years ago, in another life, I was a gamekeeper on an estate very close to here. So I was having a little chat with some of the guns there. So that was interesting. Anyway, back to the subject. So, and you might hear some bangs going off a little while. So, you know, what makes an adventure? You know, and it is different for everybody, isn't it? We have this thing where we think, is it time, you know, the length of time you're out, or is it the distance that you travel? And you know what, it's different for everybody, isn't it? You know, I was on the ride up here, I was sort of thinking about, you know, how people see little adventures. And, you know, when I think of coming up here, and I come up this little gravel track to get here, and, you know, if Karen came up here on her bike, you know, her concentration and effort to come up a little track like that and concentrating, not slipping and all the rest of it, that's a big adventure for her. As a wagon goes past, you know, that becomes an adventure, because you're, you know, to her the effort and concentration in that. And once you get to the other end of the track, and you might stop and, you know, have a chat, oh, how did that go, and all the rest of it, and that becomes an adventure, doesn't it? And I think you have to remember that sometimes, that people's level of not achievement, but pushing themselves. Sometimes an adventure can mean pushing yourself to a limit that you've not been to before, so that the next time it's a further limit. And I think that's important, is it? But, you know, sometimes I know we always take the mickey, don't we, of, you know, it's always the easy targets, aren't they, the GS riders, you know, going to having an adventure down to Starbucks. But sometimes that's all you want, isn't it? You load up your bike with all your kit, and, you know, you go out and you stop, and then you're with your mates and you're having a chat. And sometimes that is the adventure, isn't it? I suppose for me, what I love about going out, and even if it's just you know, coming here today has turned, seeing the guys, and, you know, sending my head back to another 30 years ago, you know, that's become a little adventure for me, and it's something that I remember. And when I go back home, you know, I'll relay that to Karen, say, oh, when I went up there, they remembered, you know, the estate round the corner where I worked and all the rest of it, and the people I was talking about. And that becomes part of the adventure, isn't it? But I think sometimes it's that the adventure can just be sometimes in the planning. You're going to do a day out. You don't have to stay out overnight. Sometimes it's just a day out, isn't it? And you have that. The whole thing that encompasses that is the planning, the route. You're sitting there with maps. Remember maps? It's all Google now. How much has modern technology taken a little bit of the fun out of an adventure, isn't it? Because we can plot a thing and press go, and it's on the bike, and it does it all for you, isn't it? I suppose, there's nothing wrong with that. But didn't it used to be great to sit at home with a map? And I remember doing this when I was so much younger, before sat-nav came along, that I would sit there plotting the route. And I wonder sometimes, how the hell did we ever find these places? Because if you're in the car or on a bike, you would have to keep stopping, wouldn't you? But you'd have to memorise the road names and think, well, I know this is going to be 10 miles on this bit of road, and then I've got to, turn left here, and you stop, and out comes the map. Yeah, I think not many of us knew how to orienteer, do we? Even I struggled, but I did. On the trip to Morocco and that, I did start to study about orienteering, and I took a compass. The compass is in the little clear plastic thing with the ruler and all the rest of it, just in case. It was really useful, just in case I didn't have any communication, or I lost my phone and all the rest of it. And that's part of it. There can be an element of endurance in it sometimes, isn't it, on trips like that? But I think of new riders, when a new rider comes out, and it sort of goes back to this thing about Karen. If you're a new rider, and the first time you go solo in it must be a little bit like being a pilot. The first time you go solo, and you think, should I turn left here? What's that road going to be? Am I going to get stuck on this road? And that little ride out takes on a real sort of, it's a voyage of discovery, isn't it? Can I cope with that? And when you get to the end of that road, and you've made it, and you've not fallen over, and you've not skidded, and you've not knocked your confidence, and you think, wow, I did that. And even though it may have only been a 2-mile track, it's become a great adventure, isn't it? But I love that. I love the planning. I love that side of it. That it's that going to a new place. I've never been there before, and you turn up and you realise, wow, why haven't I been here before? It's a bit like the church we went to, isn't it? At Bedham, around Christmas. Do you remember that? What a great little trip out. And me and Karen had visited that before I did that film to have a look, and the roads there were quite unpleasant, or quite not technical, but you had to be aware of yourself. Lots of blind bends, and there's a funny little hairpin there. And for Karen, that was a big thing. It was like she didn't have to slow down. Her confidence had improved, that she could cope with it. But at the end of that, when she gets off, there's obviously a great feeling of relief, but also a feeling of achievement. So that's the thing with that, isn't there? But it brings me to this point about what makes an adventure, and for me, it's that taking. Being slightly the underdog. This is why I like these small bikes. You take these little bikes and you put some panniers on, and you take your flask, or you take your little cook pot, don't you, and a little kettle, and there you are. It's a cold day. You get your tea out. Even just to plan a day or half a day where you turn up somewhere, you stop in a lovely little spot like this, and you have a cup of tea, and then you go out foraging. I've been foraging in the woods here today, and amazing, I found the Twix tree, which is great. I learned that from Ray Mears. He does a lot of this sort of stuff. But it's the loading of the kit, isn't it? It's getting into the panniers, and does that fit? Oh yeah, it fits lovely. It looks great. It never looked like that again. But it's fitted into that. Look, you've got the little box there, and all the things all slotted in lovely. And it's almost like becoming like an army logistical exercise, isn't it? But what it made me think of, and this is sort of the moving on slightly, is that this thing about the United Kingdom becoming more insular. And we're an island nation, but have we become more of an island, particularly since Brexit? Because you think, we've had this thing where I've discussed it before about bikes getting smaller and people wanting smaller bikes. Do you think that's you could attribute some of that because we don't feel we're part of this bigger world anymore. We were part of Europe, and we would get on the train or the boat, and it was just like having a bridge, and we would just see this a billion miles of sunshine and road, and we don't see that quite so much anymore. Do you think as a nation we've lost that, we're losing that wanderlust a little bit, and we've become a little bit more enclosed, which I think is very sad. But do you think that because of that we don't feel the need slightly to have the bigger bikes, and because our little adventures are so close to home now, or closer to home, that we feel that we don't need all that touring capacity? We only need that our world has got smaller, so our bikes have got smaller. It's hard to explain it, but do you know what I mean? That we've become less adventurous, maybe. And maybe that has a little bit to do with why the bikes have got smaller. I know it sounds a bit odd, but do you know what I mean? We have these psychological things that we don't realise are happening, changing around us, and our outlook has got smaller. Our island has got smaller, and we've tended to think, well, I don't need a bike to travel across Europe. I'm just going to travel to, into Surrey or Sussex, or into the Dales, whatever it is. Our whole outlook has shrunk a little bit, and maybe that's why we don't feel we need the big bikes anymore. It's not just a money thing or a weight issue with the bikes and all the rest of it. That we've come a little bit. Our island has shrunk a little bit in that respect. Interesting what your thoughts are on that. It's just something that struck me a little bit. Maybe there was a woodcock just flew over there. Whether that was another reason why bikes are getting smaller. They're not getting any lighter, are they? They're just getting smaller. But this thing about the adventure, I quite often watch Coast Rider Bruce up in Scotland, and he rides a classic 350. Great channel, worth watching, and it's really good. And he goes out and he's got signals, and he's got loads of great bits on his signals, and it's like. It reminds me of the days when I used to have my Land Rovers, and every time we went to the shops, it was an adventure in a Land Rover because I didn't know whether you were coming back or not. But it's a bit like that. It's you get on the bike, and you've got your kit on there, and you automatically go into that zone of I'm going out on an expedition. This is an adventure, and I'm only going to get a pint of milk, but I'm sort of, I look like that, so I feel like that. You go into this sort of like. Different state. The shooting started, but yeah, the adventure, and I think anybody's interpretation of adventure is different. And I think for me, probably it's going somewhere new, and it doesn't have to be far away. That little trip to the church was only a few miles from home, but it felt like a great adventure when we got there and do a little bit of exploring, and then. Once you've done your exploring and filmed it and all the rest of it, and you go and have a cup of tea, or you get the little stove out and you brew up, it becomes something that's very inbuilt into the human psyche, isn't it? This what's in the next valley, you got to for mankind to expand. We've always had to look into the next valley, and I think that's something which is so deep within the human psyche that it rears itself every now and again, and you want to go further. You want to go further, and I love that. I just love that. And as I get to that, and Karen, we get to that age where we're thinking of sort of retiring slightly properly, and the first thing we think about is where can we go. It's always where can we go. It's not about could I build an extension or whatever. It's like where's my adventure? Where am I going to head? Poor pheasants. Pretty nice birds over there. Very, very high birds. But yeah, I suppose there's some of those pheasants are now running for the border, if you like. Yeah, maybe I should. But I just think it doesn't. Don't ever fear that you're not going. Your adventures are not big enough. An adventure is whatever it is you want it to be. It can be a mile. It can be out of your driveway. You stop at the end of the driveway and you get your kettle out. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's what it is to you and what it gives you. And you know, for me, it's the planning and the sitting there, you know, at night talking over your plans, isn't it? And the excitement that it brings. And then there's that funny realization that I'm now going to go and do this. I've now got to go and do it. Another woodcock. That you got to go and do it. And there's that funny. I said this when I did my trip to Morocco. That point of no return. You're on it. You're about to leave on that trip. And as you start to pull away, there becomes a point where you can't really turn back. You've got to go over a threshold, haven't you, for a trip, particularly on those long adventures. And I suppose it's the same for the little ones. But I think when you first get on a bike and those new riders, and there's a lot of you out there, you know, it's an extraordinary sense of freedom and this whole sort of power that comes into you of I'm so independent. I can get on my little bike, and it's going to take me wherever I want to go. You know, and you can feel everything as you ride along with the wind and all the rest of it. You know, you can feel the trip, you can feel the adventure, and the journey, and that's really, really important. So I'd like to know what you think. What constitutes an event? What takes a ride out into the world of an adventure or an expedition? You know, what is it for you that brings you to that point? So there we are. It's lovely. I need to leave before everybody piles back to their vehicles. You can't see all the vehicles around me. They're all hidden behind me. Maybe I'll watch the end of their drive before I go back. I'll eat me Twix, so I foraged off that tree, and take it from there. Right. Hope you enjoyed that Wednesday Bike Club. Let me know what you think about, you know, adventures. What does adventure mean to you? What do you need to start an adventure? Right. Hope you enjoy the sun, if it's sunny where you are today, and this lovely day. And I'll see you next Saturday when we're back at Dave's at Boulders, and we're looking at 3 bikes. And a couple of a Norton, a Triton, and the Triada, which you'll see when we actually go and see it. Right. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves, and please ride safe in the cold weather. Take care.